to meet the needs of those who are most vulnerable. So in a manner of speaking, if this unbundling was done properly, then the public would understand what it is. Because the new funding model is a funding model based on the MTI, where parents are assessed using the means testing instrument, so that we can determine what level are you, because there's a strata of 5 stages or 5 groups of students that get this funding. So the people or the students who are most vulnerable get the highest amount. Those ones who are able to fund or to fund their service, to fund their education, get the equivalent of what they are able to. For example, the most vulnerable students get 95% funding, and the ones that are able to fund themselves, or are able to pay for themselves, pay a total of about 60%.
Majority Leader? You'll skip. Yes. Junet?
Chairman, I want to ask the nominee that, you know, Okili, I hope you know what you're getting into. Because this Ministry of Education is not a joke. This is something very big all over the country with a lot of problems. And as you are aware, there was a new curriculum that was introduced midway, sometimes back in the former regime when they were almost leaving. And that program has given children and parents a lot of problem. People don't know whether you are in primary school or secondary school or university. You just continue going to school until you find yourself in university. Because all classes, there's a mix-up. Parents don't understand it, children don't understand. So the question I wanted to ask you is, what do you think is the intention of the competency-based curriculum? What do you think it is supposed to achieve in your own view? If you have done research or if you have thought over it, as now the man who's to become the minister, if you are approved by the House. And from your own analysis, just tell us 3 major issues that bedevil the education sector and how you intend to handle them. The second one, before I conclude, there is this new funding model that has been brought of the universities. And it's supposed to, as it has been put, it's supposed to help the needy and everybody and the people who are in need of fees and such kind of things. But as it is today, it looks like it's not working, and it has refused to work. And it has stopped the transition from secondary to university. Many families that are poor, who are depending on help and other models, are now suffering. Their children cannot go to school. What are your thoughts on that kind of modeling? Because as far as I am concerned, that model was borrowed from developed countries and fixed here when we have not achieved that level of model. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Junet. Now, the question that you ask on the 3 main problems that are bedeviling the education sector is a very important question. And in my view...
First, I ask you whether you know what you're getting into.
I'm coming into it. I'm coming into it, and that's why I've started with that one. Because when I thought about it, I realized that the main problem of the education sector is funding. Each and every problem that you can identify in the education sector, its root is funding. Funding in the sense that there is not sufficient money to cover all the programs and all the students in the country. So then I asked myself, just like you've asked me, do I know what I'm getting into? Is this something that I need to do to get in there? And I said, somebody has to do this job. So if you find that I'm suitable to take this position, my thoughts are, the only way to solve the problem bedeviling the whole sector is to find a way of raising enough funds to ensure that the provisions of the Constitution with respect to education are covered. When I thought about it, I realized that there has not been a clear audit to find out, for instance, how many students do we have who need resources? How many funds do we have that cover these students? How many organizations are giving various assistance to these children? How many people are contributing every day towards the school fees of these children in the country? In other words, how much money is the whole country spending on education? So that we can come up to a decision on how that money can be harnessed in order to service the education sector and ensure that all the children in the country are actually get free education as stipulated in the Constitution. So I said I would take up the challenge and work with all the stakeholders to find a solution to the funding problem. The second problem that I realized needs to be tackled is there are a lot of good policies and good laws in the education sector. But I realized that perhaps we are not adhering to those particular policies. What do I mean? I mean there is nothing in the education sector that is not provided for, but people are not obeying, or they are not faithful to those policies. So we have a problem of implementation of those policies, hence the need to find a way of ensuring that implementation is up to date. The question of the new curriculum-based, the competency-based curriculum that came about, it actually started in 2012. The 844 system came to replace the 844 system, which was basically exam-based. Exam-based in the sense that you have children doing exams. When they don't pass, the ones who pass go to university or to colleges. The ones who don't pass lose their way in the middle. So it became necessary to come up with a competency-based curriculum that recognizes the competencies and the talents of the other children who may not be as good as in the exams. That is why it is a program that will help, that carries every child along. So it is a good program, but it has not been understood fully by all the parties and all the stakeholders. So one of the things that needs to be done is to unbundle the various elements of that particular CBC and have that information passed on to the public so that they can understand. So there needs to be a lot of sensitization in that area because we are now in that program.
Yes, Nelson, has he finished your questions?
The new education funding model, I'd referred to it earlier. It started last year. It is only 1 year into operation. We are doing the second year now. It has some teething problems. And of course, one of the challenges that it has is the means testing instrument is not wide enough to capture everybody and to be able to identify everybody's level of income in order to know the children from those homes what level of funding should they get from the university. So it is working, and it's work in progress.
Nelson, Posing.
Thank you, Speaker. And my question, Speaker, this is the most interesting candidate before us on this committee. And this is the reason why I'm saying, Speaker, I've heard him very clearly. And for the whole of his life, now it's remaining with 3 years for him to attain retirement age. Only 3 years. He has never worked in public service at all. Anywhere, he's not worked in public service. He's not been motivated or what? And in getting the suitability speaker and following what Honorable Junet said.
He's currently the chairman of Kenyan.
Just the other day, Speaker, that's something just the other day. In terms of suitability, Honorable Speaker, in accordance with Section 7, which I want the candidate to be able to explain to this committee and maybe to convince me, what motivation has he in public service now, 3 years to his retire, while he was not motivated for the rest of his life, when he was very, very useful. Remember, Honorable Speaker, I'm not saying that he's not useful any longer. But to attain retirement age is only 3 years. Was that a headhunting or was that a reward? I want Mr. Miko to explain to this committee and the people of Kenya. This is not a joke ministry, as Honorable Junet said. Actually, I don't know what to call. And you are coming in during a time when there is complications on CBC, funding, teachers, and so on. And you have never worked in public service. So my question is, what motivates you now at your retirement age to work in public service, Honorable Migos, for us to approve you? What is it? Convince me.
Let's take the next. Kikaria.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe my question to the nominee is, basic education faces so many challenges, one of which is capitation and the additional fee charged by schools. Secondly, there are those issues that arise because of the school feeding program. How do you plan to address these challenges to ensure timely disbursement of capitation funds and compliance with the Act provisions to eliminate additional fees, thereby ensuring accessible and inclusive education for all Kenyan children? Thank you, Chair.
Those.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me start with Honorable Gikaria's question on the basic education issue of capitation. The problem of capitation, or the issue of capitation, is a problem that is of a national nature. It is an issue that arises from the fact that we do not have enough resources in the country. In fact, in the capitation model, the government was supposed to do 80% of capitation to the schools. But at no time has it ever been able to give that figure either on time or in total. So there is a challenge in the money coming to the schools for them to be able to undertake their programs on time. So one of the things that may be brought to bear so that that problem is resolved would be agreeing with Treasury through Parliament that the sums of the budget of the ministry be ring-fenced, because it's a sensitive ministry, so that it gets released on time and released in totality. That is one of the ways that we can resolve the weakness in that particular area of capitation. There are programs and there are policies in place that do not allow the teachers in schools to raise or to give extra fees or levies from the parents. But there are some principals or some teachers or some schools that flout this particular requirement or this particular regulation. So therefore, what we would do is to ensure that we have a strict implementation of those policies by ensuring that we have a watertight disciplinary mechanism for those who actually flout those particular regulations and policies. On the school feeding program, it is a program that was rolled out by government to cover the ASAL counties where there are difficulties of getting food, and also the informal settlements in some towns. And it is currently covering 26 counties. We have a coverage of about 2.6 million children. And it is a program that has to be continued because it helps the students to be retained in school, and it helps them to come, and continue being in school. So what needs to be done is to come up with programs and policies that allow intergovernment agencies, for example, Kenya Meat Commission or the Cereals Board, so that we can utilize the amounts of money we have to be able to reach more children. It's a program that the government wants to continue, and it's a program that if I was nominated, I would continue to pursue. On the question of retirement age, I am not yet on that.
It's irrelevant. There's no age limit for a
There's no
minister.
age limit.
Mary?
Thank you, Chairman. I want to pick up from where...
Point of order, Honorable Speaker. That question of age was building my question, and I was asking what is his motivation.